few books and no library, except when they brought the old library from the white school down. And it was all of the books and everything in there were falling apart. And they were filled with carbonic acid. I don't know what that was for, but that's the way they were. And the schools we had no facilities, no music. The teachers were well qualified, and they took great pains with the students. They knew you, and they wanted you to study and wanted you to learn, and they helped you all they could. And when I graduated from 8th grade, the teacher from the white schools came down and gave us our 8th grade examination. And I don't know how we passed, because the white schools were so much further ahead of us than they just were so far as day and night, but we all passed, I think. And that's the way they done then.
Well, did you have a high school?
It had high school, yes, all in one building.
Did you go on to high school?
I did.
And what was the difference in the high school at your school and the other high school in the city? Did you have an athletic team?
Very few athletics. We played outside. We had no gym. At one time they built an annex on the back of the school for the primary department. We played ball in there, and it was just about 40 feet wide. No, 40 feet wide. And the Board of Health said we had to stop that because it was tearing the building down, and it was falling down. It was a frame building we were in, no brick. Nothing.
You were talking about basketball now.
Yes, we played basketball inside, and they stopped that. We had to go outside and play. We have games on Saturday or Friday afternoon. And
other schools or just
well, some other schools around close by, Horse Cave and Cave City, little towns like that would come, and they would play.
You have a baseball team?
No, we play amongst ourselves, and once in a while they'd have a baseball team.
And I don't suppose any football?
We had one football team one time, and we had to play down back close to where the city dump was, and the field was unplowed, and bottles and cans and glass and everything, and I don't know where we got these uniforms, but they was given to us, I suppose, by the white school, and we didn't know anything about football anyway.
Now, once you graduated from high school, what opportunities did you have, if any, for future education?
None, not unless your parents were able to send you to a college. We had no grants, no scholarships or anything like that. They weren't available to us. They were available, but not to the blacks.
Was there an African college in Frankfort at that time as there is now?
Kentucky State, yes.
Kentucky State was there.
And there was one in Lincoln Ridge that's close down. I forget now exactly where that was, but there was one called Lincoln Ridge, because one of our teachers went there, graduated from there.
There were no scholarships available or anything of that nature?
No, if you went to school, college, your parents had to be able to send you, and there wasn't any scholarships.
Now, what opportunities of employment were here when you graduated from high school?
You could get janitor jobs. Ladies could get jobs working in the kitchen, washing and ironing, and that was just about it. There was no factory, no public work for a lady, for the blacks. And
what did you do once you got out of high school?
Well, at the time I was in grocery business, my dad was, and I run the grocery business for a while, and I closed that up, and I went to Fort Knox, stayed about a couple of years, and sickness in the family brought me back, and I started working at Ely Drugs.
What opportunities did you have at Fort Knox? What did you do at Fort Knox?
Well, I worked at the Officers Club, Just it was the officers, the general, colonels, generals, and so forth. No advancement. Just when you started working there, that's all. You worked till you left. But I didn't stay there for about a couple of years.
And then you came back to Glasgow and went to work.
Came back to Glasgow and went to work for Ely.
Now, briefly tell us something about how you were accepted in Ely's.
Ely's?
Yes. Not necessarily by the personnel within the drugstore, but I'm talking about the public generally.
The public got along fine with them. I never had any problems at all. I met a lot of fine people and still know a lot of them. And,
now, and when was that?
In 44, I think it's 44. I'm very bad in recalling numbers and years when things happen.
Now what about personnel within the drugstore?
Got along fine with them. Very, very little trouble. Once in a while some of the employees or some might say a word that wasn't kosher with me, and I'd get them told. I'd just tell them I didn't talk that way. Don't use that around me, and I never had any great deal of trouble.
You were very successful as a stock clerk.
Well, I worked until I retired. I never heard any complaints, I suppose.
Now, what opportunities are there now, Archie, that you've become aware of here? Well, first, let's back up a little bit. Where are you originally from?
I'm from Gary, Indiana. I'm born and raised in Gary, Indiana. I went to school at Wabash College in Crawfordsville, Indiana. And I've been here in Glasgow now since December of 1972.
Well, I think maybe a good question would be, what difference did you find in Gary and Glasgow insofar as the acceptance of African Americans were concerned? And I realize that in Gary, Indiana, it's predominantly
Black, yes.
Black.
Well, you got to understand that I grew up in virtually an all-black neighborhood. I went to an all-black high school. The only whites that I really came in contact with were insurance salesmen. The milkman was white. Occasional salesman of some sort that might come by the door, and whenever we went downtown. All of my teachers were black with the exception of one, so my entire world was black. And until I went to Crawfordsville, Indiana, I really never had to deal with or concern myself necessarily with racial issues or dealing with whites in general. So my stay in Crawfordsville really prepared me for coming to Glasgow, because Crawfordsville is a lot like Glasgow, and that is predominantly white, maybe 100 black families altogether that live there. So I had to begin to change and to at least to figure out how I was going to be able to get along with people of a different culture. One of the things my mother taught me when I was growing up, which helped me tremendously, was to treat people to deal with people based on how they dealt with you. In other words, if they treated you fine, then you don't have any problems. You don't prejudge people just because they're black or white. You know, I don't walk into a room and see a bunch of white people or see a bunch of black people and presuppose that they're a certain way. So that it helped me to prepare myself to deal with this kind of a community. But when we first got here to Glasgow, my wife and I were very used to going out to eat. And that was one of the strange things we noticed. Very few blacks actually sat in a restaurant in this town back in early '72 to eat. And we thought it was kind of strange because we knew there were blacks here. You know, we had seen many of them and met many of them. Yet when we went out to eat, even at a McDonald's, for example, not to mention Boaton's Landing today or the Copper Frog years ago when it first opened up, but you saw very few blacks sitting in a restaurant eating. And that was one of the first things we kind of noticed. Now today it's a little bit different. It's not as bad as it was back then. But you noticed those kinds of things. But as time went on, you know, things seemed to get a little better in many ways. Opportunity-wise, it's probably a little better than it was, of course, back when, excuse me, Mr. Wade was growing up. I want to say Frank, but
that's all right. Yeah, that's all right. That's quite all right.
Okay, but if you look around the town, go in any business in the town, even the electric plant board, whose building we're sitting in right now, and look around and see the number of minorities that work there. Particularly if you look at minorities in positions of authority. And you'll find that they're very, very few. And my own personal opinion, and keep in mind these are my own personal views, is that it's not that people don't get along with one another, because I think race relations here in Glasgow are very good for the most part. You always have your oddballs, obviously, and that's anywhere in the world.
In both races.
In both races. It's not a one-way street. Keep that in mind. It's definitely not a one-way street. But for the most part, people get along well in Glasgow. And I attribute that to a lot of things personally. But it's obvious that the blacks in town wanted to try to get along, and it's also obvious that they grew up with a lot of whites, played with a lot of whites as young kids, and as a result, as they got older, they maintained some of those friendships. So for the most part, people get along real well. But when you get into the business world and people are looking for an opportunity to advance, even if they go to school, I know a number of minorities here who have got college degrees, some who've gone on and even have gotten masters, and yet they are not able to break into the business community and achieve any level of success beyond an entry-level type of a position. And that bothers me.
We'll get back to that in
Sure.
a minute. I want to get over to Mr. Duke for a little bit. I take it you were born and raised here in Glasgow. Suppose you comment on the difference when you came along as far as schools and so forth are and were concerned, and the way they were as Mr. Wade described it.
Well, when I was coming through the educational process, of course, I've always been involved in an integrated school system from the first grade on up to graduation. So we never had the problems that Mr. Wade had, but yet there were still problems. As a high school student, the Afro-American children were never really pushed or encouraged to go to college and to get their college education. Most of the time the thinking was you get your high school diploma and then you find you a job in one of the factories. And that was primarily how we were related to. And I have a friend, and he tells the story that he wanted to major in biology, and he wanted to be a professor. And his guidance counselor told him that he would never make it, he would never amount to very much, and that it would be best for him to just throw his interest into maybe getting a factory job. And now that fellow, though, is a professor of biology at Western Kentucky University and doing very well. And so there were some obstacles in the way, but yet it's still many, find a way to overcome those obstacles. And as far as opportunity is, job opportunities, employment opportunities is concerned, I have to agree with Mr. Williams. You find very few African Americans in managerial positions, very few in this city. You very seldom hear of African Americans promoted to any positions of authority. Usually, if you get in an entry-level position, you stay there pretty much of your life unless you are moved. Lots of times that is one of the ways that they will cope with African Americans, is they will maybe move them into another geographical area instead of keeping them in the Glasgow area. And also, I have a concern about African American teachers. There's not very many African American teachers for young African Americans to look up as role models. I believe in the system we only have maybe one or two, in the system, and that's you know, that's sad in the city of our size with the African American population that we have in our educational system.
Let's go back just a moment to the guidance counselor that you were talking about a moment ago. I don't know at that particular time, because I don't know just when you were out there in high school, but you did have a black guidance counselor out there.
Right. Mr. Russell Conley.
Right. Now, he didn't counsel with your friend?
Well, this was before Mr. Conley was
That was
counselor.
before he was there.
This friend's a little...
I was wondering about the time frame.
Right. This was probably back in the early 70s.
Okay.
Before Mr. Conley became a counselor.
I know he was out there and he had a reputation of doing a good job.
Right. He did a good
I was sorry when he retired, but he did retire.
All right.
Let's address this matter of teachers a moment.
All right.
I am told, and I don't know, but I am told that efforts are made to get black teachers, and black teachers don't want to come here. Do you know anything about that, one way or the other?
Well, in talking to the superintendent of schools, we've discussed this issue a number of times, and yes, he has told me that it's hard to get them here, but sometimes you have to make an effort to really get them here. And as Brother Mr. Williams has said, we do have teachers, certified teachers, in the city, but they're working at other places for whatever reasons, you know, economics and other reasons. But there are people who do want to teach, but sometimes you just have to reach out and get them.
Agreed. I know of a couple of people that I know eventually are striving to apply with the school system here to try to teach. I don't know if right now both of them have their teaching certificates or not, but there have been several people over the years who have tried to get on with the Glasgow school system, and for whatever reason they were unable to get on, and they ended up looking elsewhere, finding other employment opportunities, and started working there. So it's not like there aren't people here who are qualified, capable. Many of them have just become discouraged and quit looking. And I'm not trying to knock the school system, don't get me wrong, or the superintendent, because I have no idea what he's tried to do, or the system as a whole has tried to do. And possibly maybe they have looked. Maybe they haven't found the candidates that they're looking for. Maybe these people that we ourselves might know just haven't actually come forward and applied. Some people talk a good game, if you know what I mean. They'll talk about they've tried to do this or they've done this or whatever. In reality, maybe they did not. So it's hard to really sit here and pass judgment, at least on my behalf anyway, to pass judgment on the Glasgow school system, because I really don't know all of what they've done to try to attract black minority teachers here. But I have heard over the years several people who have tried to get on with the school system and have been unable to do so for several different reasons.
I have heard that. I've heard it both ways, and that's one reason we're here, to discuss these things and ask about them. I realize that there aren't a great deal of, a great many black teachers. However, the situation in that regard is not as bad as it once was. Of course, you've got a principal that of one of the schools.
But do you know how many black teachers do we really have in Glasgow?
I don't know.
I only know of two personally, counting Bill Twyman.
I really don't know. You're talking about the Glasgow system?
Glasgow system.
I think
I'm not as familiar with the county.
I think there's some in the county, but okay. I don't know how many is in either. But
in the Glasgow system, I'm only aware of two.
But I have been told that they have sought more and didn't get qualified applicants. And when I talk about qualifications, as you know, there are requirements now in the state for certain degrees,
Sure.
for certain teaching positions. And they didn't, so I understand, get the qualified teachers for the positions that were open. But again, I don't know how much effort has been made and how much effort hasn't been made. Another thing that has surprised me here in Glasgow, as I guess all of you know, I'm a lawyer. I have never had anybody of African American descent ask me about clerking in my law office or coming to Glasgow to practice law. I know of one lawyer from Glasgow that's in Lexington, and I knew him, I knew his mother, and I only know of one black lawyer in a town the size of Glasgow anywhere in this area. There's one in Elizabethtown, but I know him in Lexington, I know him in Louisville, and again I am wondering, and then this is the question I'm posing, is the town too small to attract them?
There's a problem with attracting qualified blacks to a town of this size, but what the town needs to do, and what I think we ought to do, is to encourage those who grow up here to pursue those opportunities. I have to admit, a town of Glasgow's size and presents a problem when you're really trying to attract a top candidate. But you have less of a problem if you sort of grow your own. We have, matter of fact, many of the existing lawyers in Glasgow are former Glasgow high school students. Many of the existing doctors in Glasgow, a lot of them are from Glasgow. But yet, when the black kids are growing up, as Eric Duke and Mr. Wade pointed out, they weren't encouraged to pursue a lot of these opportunities. And there's a fear factor that's associated with they're going out even and applying for jobs that's here, because they feel they aren't going to be given that opportunity in the first place. So why do you run the risk of beating your head up against the wall repeatedly and get to only be turned down once again? You know, there's only so much people will put up with when it comes to that. So there's a possibility that some of that is coming through as to why you haven't had anyone apply for a clerk position, as an example, or why some of the other businesses are here in town. And I want to make sure people understand that we don't need to try to single out factories here in this community. If anything, the factories probably have done more than many of the smaller businesses.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Okay. And
I
do
agree
think
with you
they're
about
trying
that.
very
I don't
hard.
think there's any doubt about that at all.
And a good example, I worked several years ago, and it's been several years, I went on several recruiting trips trying to get blacks to come to the town from out of colleges. And I have to admit, when you talk about Glasgow as a town of 13,000, of roughly 7 or 8% black population, it's not extremely attractive to someone who's looking to really further their career opportunities and to really get ahead. It's a great little community, and I try to stress the positives of this community, because personally I like this little town. I really do, because I think there's a lot of good people here, and it's a great place to raise a family and a great place to live in a lot of ways. It has its problems, but so does everywhere.
But there's one thing I'll point out to you, and you're getting in a position where you're going to find what I'm about to tell you is true.
Sure.
This business of keeping young people here is not confined to the blacks.
Oh, true.
It is also a problem, and becoming more and more a problem with all young people of Glasgow. And you were talking about lawyers. Most of your young lawyers here in Glasgow now are not originally from Glasgow. They've come here from other towns. Now, the middle-class lawyers and the older lawyers, that's different. But the young lawyers that you've got here now and the young lawyers that are coming in here have come from other places, or they have married somebody from here and come that way. So you've got that problem. And I will warn you now, I've had 4 children, all of them college educated, and there isn't a one here today. And you've got one that's going to Vanderbilt, and in 4 years, he probably is not going to come back to Glasgow.
That's probably true.
So,
as a matter of fact, they've already, well, I'm not going to say they've already said it, because they are interested in trying to get out and see a little bit of the world. And I don't blame young people.
I'm not blaming them either. I'm just stating facts here.
There are a lot of young kids who have come back, and there are a lot of them that will want to come back, that are interested in pursuing a professional career, and they're there. I'm not saying that you're going to get that many. I'm not saying you're necessarily going to get the top of their class, but there are quite a few that are there, and that's in both sides of this issue. I'm not talking about black or white. This youth issue exists for all of Glasgow's youth.
It certainly
of trying
does.
to attract back the talent pool so that businesses can continue to flourish and grow and have the talent there to draw from. So yes, you're right. That is going to be a continuing problem for Glasgow as the years go on, because when opportunity, especially as opportunities diminish, we are not growing at the rate that possibly we would like to see us grow. I was really amazed to find out that based on the census this last time, that we had actually lost populations according to that census. And that's surprising.
I wonder about, but
great. But that's not the subject.
That's not
we're here
the
to talk
subject.
About. So I'll shut up.
I wonder about that, but that's not the subject.
Right.
Mr. Duke, what's the solution to some of the problems we're talking about here as they affect African Americans?
Well, there's not really, maybe not one, out or one just flat solution. I think there's many. I think there has to be some encouragement in the school system. I do believe there has to be some encouragement in the school system, not only from white teachers, but from the black teachers, and I think there has to be some support from the black community. Also, we cannot expect our black youth to do anything unless we in the black community who are older to encourage them to go to school, to make a career for themselves and to come back. Talking about careers, especially those who want to be doctors and lawyers, I have some friends who have gone to college and are now, they're in the medical profession, and some are lawyers, and they talk about coming to Glasgow. One of the reasons why many of them say they would not come back to Glasgow is not so much the support from whites. They feel that the black community probably would not support them. I know a young lady who's a lawyer, and one of the reasons why she never set practice here in the city was she did not believe that any of the black residents would support her law practice. And I have a friend who's a doctor, and he practices medicine in the city, and he said the reason why he would not come back to Glasgow is because of the fact he did not think that any of the blacks in the community would be patients, So that issue has to be addressed as well. We have to support our own.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have asked some black people, if you had a black lawyer here, would they go to a black lawyer or a white lawyer? And they invariably told me they'd rather have a white lawyer. Of course, I can understand where they were coming from in some respects. Some of them would say, after all, if I have to go before a jury, it's going to be a predominantly white jury. And we think that a white lawyer would have more persuasion with a white jury than a black one would. But I don't think that exists any longer, because you have people of various races on the jury now, and you have women on the jury now, which when I first came to Glasgow, I'm not a native of Glasgow, incidentally, but I've been here since 1947. And when I came, you didn't have any women on the jury. They were all white males at that particular time, and that is no longer true. Frank has served on jury several times that I know of. We're on the jury right now, and that has changed. So I don't think that holds, but I think your holds any longer. But you're right, and I suspect that you still have that feeling out in the community about that. Another thing that I want to discuss here, and this is, again, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, but some of the problems we are discussing here, as has already been pointed out, are certainly applying to all races. That's this matter of family. Frank, suppose you tell us the difference that you may have observed in family life when you were a youngster coming up and what you're seeing now and what you know about.
When I was coming up, the family life was much different than it is now. The mother stayed home, took care of the children, and the father worked. And they corrected you, and if you went to school and done something wrong, you would get whipping. But now if you touch a child, the teacher touches one, or either the family, your mother or father touches the child, they're taken to court, child abuse. That's one of the worst things. They've taken that to the extreme, this child abuse. I think it is. And all of the folks were working, and they took care of the children, took interest in them. And they didn't let them, it didn't have free reign like they do now. That's the way.
There was some discipline.
Indeed,
involved.
I mean discipline too. They wasn't brutal, but you get a spanking. I got a minute one, and I'm still here, not sore from it.
Well, do you see any difference, Mr. Duke, in family life as you came up and as you are seeing, and I suspect having problems with as a minister today?
Growing up, of course, in the late 60s, early 70s, still there was that mother and father at home, mother and father in the family. Usually mother was at home, father worked. But nowadays, we have so many of these single-parent families, oftentimes just the woman alone raising the children, and we have a lot of problems with that. A lot of the women do a fine job, great job, a terrific job in raising children alone. But there needs to be a male influence, I believe, in the home for stability purposes. And there's just a difference, even in the discipline area. Even in my youth, we were disciplined. We knew what we could do and what we couldn't do. And now today, I frankly hear children actually tell their mothers and even sometimes their fathers what they are going to do and how they're going to do it. And most times the parents will back off and will allow the child to have their way. Not only am I a minister, but also will work with my father at the grocery store, the IJ grocery store here in the city. And oftentimes children will come into the store and maybe they'll want a certain item. And most times parents will bribe their children just to do as they say, buy them an item off the shelf or buy them a toy. And so discipline has really went around the corner. And maybe we need to get back to the discipline to keep our families strong as they should be. And I must congratulate Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams has done a wonderful job in rearing his children. He has some children that are doing magnificent in school and in their lives, and when you see them out in public, they always speak to you, they address you by the right title, and he and Miss Williams are doing a great job in raising their children. I guess maybe if more people, black and white, would try to emulate Mr. Williams and Mrs. Williams, maybe this community and maybe the world would be a better place.
I'm sure
You're too kind.
I'm sure you have some comments about this, Mr. Williams.
Most definitely. you know, a lot of our problems with raising kids nowadays is society-driven. Society has put a lot of pressures on all of us in a lot of ways. You know, I think back growing up in the 60s and the changes that the youth, which I was a part of, went through during that time, and the rebellion that took place has really hurt us in a lot of ways. And I can't sit here and sort of chastise the parents who are here today, because many of them are doing the best they possibly can. You're finding a lot of single-parent homes primarily because of the lack of opportunities for people. And I'm just talking about people in general right now. It might be more so on the black side of the equation, but the problem is there. And it's to the family's advantage not to be together in so many ways. The way our government is set up, the way things are, our tax system, our welfare system, our, you know, numerous societal systems that have been put into place encourage people not to get married and stay as a family unit. And it's creating a lot of these problems. The kids themselves are, since they don't have, many of them don't have father figures in the home. And I'm not saying having a father figure in the home is a total solution, because it's not. The parents have got to play an active role in their kids' lives. They can't just send them off to this or send them over to that. They've got to be there for them. They've got to be with them. And they've got to say no from time to time and talk to their children. And you don't get enough of that these days. I think a lot of parents, as Mr. Duke was saying, want to just buy their love. You know, they'll get them a car, they'll get them this, or they'll get them whatever they can get them just to keep them quiet, or just to solve that particular problem, rather than dealing with the issues and explaining to them why, and hoping that they understand. Because most of the kids in this, in not just our community, but in the world today, have a greater capacity to understand than a lot of parents want to give them credit for. But they're not willing to treat them as people and talk to them about these things, and to explain to them, no, you're not going to do this, or you can't do that, or yes, you can do this. And many parents also don't have the time for one reason. Either they don't have the time or they don't want to take the time to participate in their children's activities, to do the things that their kids want to do. So the kids get out there and they start running with the people who will take that interest. And many of them are the wrong type of, have the wrong kind of influence.
Don't you find that each individual, as he or she grows up, likes to know and wants to know what the limits are?
Sure.
And they expect somebody and want somebody to set the limits.
Definitely.
But that's not going on anymore.
No, it's not.
That's, I think that is, I think we can all agree that that's one of the problems. And of course, you've touched on another problem, or what I think is a problem, and that's this matter of giving them whatever they want. And when you give and give and give, you're not creating any self-esteem in the person that's receiving it, because to have self-esteem, you've got to have some sense of having earned it.
Right.
And is that lacking in the community here in the black community in Glasgow? It is in a lot of white places, I know. But,
that's a worldwide problem. That's not just Glasgow. That's not just black community. That problem exists throughout this country. The black community may have a tougher road to hoe because of the fact that many things that they were taught over the years. Let me back up a minute. Let me just point one thing out. You were talking earlier about why some of these things are this way. Why haven't the blacks pursued these types of activities? And it really goes back to years and years and years ago, and it sort of perpetuated itself as time went on. They were refused opportunities for so many years that they began to teach their children, don't look to go any further than a certain thing. why pursue this? Because you're not going to be given the opportunity, at least not in this community, to take advantage of it. And that sinks home. I can recall the friends of my sons saying, well, why do you want to do this, or why are you doing that? You're not going to be able to do anything with it anyway. You know, you might as well just forget about doing these kinds of things because you're not going anywhere. And we've always told our kids, you can be anything you want to. It's up to you. You know, if you want it bad enough and you go after it with enough zeal and enthusiasm, you can get it. But it's up to you. And for somebody to tell you that you can't, you know, they're the one with a problem. But the problem these kids are that who have said this to my kids have is that their parents may have told them that because of their experiences. They ran up against that door so many times that they didn't want their kids to be hurt by it. So rather than raising that level of expectation where the kids are constantly shooting for the moon, you know, or shooting for the stars and hoping at least for the moon, they're not even shooting for the sky.
How are you going to break that tradition?
It takes time. But you're right with one thing, it has to start. We've got to do that ourselves. That's got to be done within the black community, that part. We may not have created it, the problem, but we're the only ones that can solve it. You can't solve it. The white community here can't solve it. We're going to have to solve that problem. And it's going to take some time, but it's going to take people realizing that they can do anything they want to do. No, they may be turned down numerous times, but that should not stop you. You got to keep going forward. You got to keep trying. You got to keep striving. And we got to look to protect and to take care of our own. And one day, we will wake up to that fact as a whole. Maybe not a whole, but a majority anyway. And we'll get there. But it's going to take time because the hurts are there from years and years of pain and anguish of running into all of these little subtle kinds of problems that many of the minorities have faced. Much like Mr. Wade did when he was growing up. You know, if all you ever had the opportunity to be was a housekeeper or a janitor, and that's what your father was, that's what your father's father was, that's what your uncle was, and you didn't see anybody else in any other position or had the opportunity to get around people who were like that, that's all you think you're going to be able to be. And that's a problem.
I'm afraid that was probably in the mind of the counselor that was talking to your friend. That could very well, because that set of opinion, or that type of opinion, it was not confined to the blacks. There's some whites that felt the same way, and probably some still out there that still feel the same way. Is there too much of an expectation within the black community that because of the wrongs that have been committed in the past, that they should be given certain things without working for it?
You want me to answer it?
Yes, because that is a question that comes up.
Sure.
And is raised, and I think that's a question we ought to discuss.
I have to admit, you'll find many blacks who feel that, yes, they are owed an opportunity. And on the one hand, I have to sit up and say I probably agree with them in many ways. At least a chance, an opportunity to just show that yes, I can or I cannot. So yes, you have many people who feel that that is not just their God-given right, but an obligation that the white community owes us because of all the problems and the things that have happened over the years. On the other hand, I personally think, for the most part, people have got to earn what they get. And part of our problem over the years has been that tendency of white America to try to make amends for all of the things that have happened over the past by trying to give. And as we were talking about, when it comes to kids, the more you give, the more they're going to want to take. Mm-hmm. And until something happens in there where the child earns what they're looking for, or earns what they're after, there's not the appreciation there for that, for acquiring that thing, whether it's a job or any other thing. But yeah, you probably have a great expectation, and I can't sit here and say that I disagree with it.
Do you find that true, Mr. Duke?
Yes, to a pretty good extent. You find that true, especially in the younger generation, especially when they learn about the history, about what our people had to come through, and a lot of them feel that a lot of things are, a lot of opportunities ought to be opened up to them. Of course, as Mr. Williams said, you also have to instill in the person a work ethic, that you don't get anything for nothing. And of course, that's what the country was built upon. You worked, and you got what you worked for. So we have to instill that in them. And but you know, there is that always in the back of the mind. Well, especially in a younger generation, well, what could my family have been if my great-grandfather had opportunities that someone else had? Maybe we could have owned a business. Maybe we could have had a law firm. Or maybe we could have had a medical practice. And maybe I could have been an heir to that. But because my great-grandfather before me did not have that opportunity, therefore it shut me out of the opportunity. Now I have to start out, you know, I have to start out on the entry-level position. I have to start out at the bottom level and work my way up. You know, one of the things in the black community, what you said, is that there is nothing really, a father very seldom leaves or gives anything to a son. Usually what he gets, he has to work for it. Of course, in the white community, in many areas, you know, a business was given from a father or grandfather. It just was passed on down the line. You learned to work because you saw your grandfather. They taught you the business. But that hasn't been, that's just now being done and practiced in the black community at this particular time. And but you have to work. We need to, you know, we need to instill in our young people, black and white, that if you ever want anything in this life, you're going to have to work at it, and you're going to have to get it honestly. There are a lot of folks who are saying you can get it dishonestly, but you know, that's a road that leads down a dangerous track, and one that leads usually to death or prison. But we need to instill in them, you can have anything you want if you are willing to work for it, put an effort to get it, and get it honestly. You can achieve the things that you want out of this life.
Do you think that there are or are not opportunities here in Glasgow for blacks to establish businesses of their own?
Well, there will be. I think there have been opportunities, and in every incident there have been some folks who had opportunities, but maybe because of poor management, maybe because they was not ready to handle responsibility, they blew it. And sometimes they can have an effect on others, because you see someone else fail, then you don't want to try. And then getting back to my other premise, lots of times we've had businesses in the community that we as black folks did not support, and the business had to fold. So, you know, there are opportunities if we are willing someone's willing to walk out, as I would say, on faith and try to do it. And then if the black community will support that individual and buy from him what he sells, that individual can make it.
Your father has certainly been an asset to the store where he is, and his helping to manage it and things of that nature. And I think probably there are opportunities out there, but there don't seem to be anyone or not many taking advantage of them. What's your perception of that, Mr. Williams?
There's a lot of truth to that. But business today, small business especially, is very difficult for anybody to make. To start up in a business opportunity takes a lot of effort on someone's part. They need to have a lot of know-how, or at least know where to get the information from to properly run a facility. I was surprised when I first came to Glasgow. I had heard that prior to the 60s, that there were numerous black businesses here in town. There were numerous black teachers here. There were even doctors and dentists of some sort that existed here. And then but by the time the 60s rolled around and they integrated the schools and a lot of the other things took place, the civil rights laws were passed, et cetera, many of these businesses closed and many of the professional people moved out. And that says something, because what it says, as far as I'm concerned, is that number one, it's either extremely difficult to compete, and unless you're large enough where you can buy in volume and get your costs down, that you're not going to be able to compete against some of the bigger stores that are around town and maintain. And if you're counting on a population base of 1,000 to 2,000 people possibly here in the state, here in the county of Barron, that's going to be extremely difficult to make it. So unless you've got the kind of business that people frequent regularly, and a good number of them would want to go there, you're going to have a hard time making it if all you're going to count on is the black population. It's going to be tough. So it's got to be the kind of business that can cross the color barrier, that both sides would be more than willing to frequent your business and support you. I don't think you can do it anymore just counting on the black population.
Well, I think you're right there. I think it takes support from all races. Incidentally, Glasgow is acquiring more and more minority groups from other races.
True.
Now, do you find any discrimination within your community as to them?
Not only do you find, discrimination towards other minorities, we have discrimination. We discriminate against and have prejudice against the white community as well. And in a lot of instances, we have prejudice towards one another because of social classes, because of what maybe one group, one person, or one family has achieved. We have that. So it runs the gamut. We have it. And it's a problem, with all people.
I don't know if I've heard of any problems there, but the one concern that I have as it relates to some of the other minorities, and not so much here in Glasgow, but in our country as a whole, to speak of just the LA situation, for example, for a brief moment, a lot of the Koreans that came to LA were able to get loans to start their businesses and don't have to pay taxes on that money until 5, 6, 7 years down the road. And many of the blacks who live in that community who would love to open up a business aren't given that same opportunity. And that's the kind of thing that creates other problems with other races. Here in Glasgow, though, we're getting a sizable Oriental population right now, and we're going to see more and more of it. We've got several Indians here right now. And all of these people got different cultures and different backgrounds. And things are going to be a little bit different for a lot of the natives of Glasgow. And the white community particularly is going to have to understand that they're going to have to deal with these folks and deal with their differences and not use those differences as a weakness, because they can be a very big strength. And if we will open ourselves up to people as a whole, all races of people, blacks, whites, Orientals, Indians, whoever happens to be here, and draw upon the strength of those people, we can have a very good community here. Much better than we even have right now.
Again, and only briefly, in regard to the most recent verdict in the King case, I noticed that the majority of African Americans I've heard comment about it are calling it partial justice. Why?
Well, I'll let Mr. Wade answer first, and then I'll come later.
We've only got 3 or 4 minutes here, and I got another question I want to.
Well, the 4 were just as, if one was guilty, all 4 were guilty. They beat the man like a dog, and for no reason at all. He was laying on the ground, helpless, and they were beating him. If you beat a dog like that, they'll throw you in a jail, in behind the jail, under it, anywhere. And he was helpless, and they're laying there beating, kicking, stomping. And if anybody take part in something like that, they're guilty, in my eyes. I've sat on jury a lot of times, and I try to be just as lenient and honest with people when I'm on jury as I can be. But I could not see how they could let either those two loose. But of course, I guess that was partial. That kept maybe separated that please both sides. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. That's my opinion.
Pretty much what he said. I think it's they all participated to some degree. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the 2 that were found guilty probably deserved their guilty verdicts more so than the other 2, possibly, based on participation in the beating. But they all participated.
They could have had a lesser fine, maybe the other 2. They couldn't. Actually, I wouldn't have turned them loose. But that's the way the judge generally.
Put it this way. If someone were to drive a car and a person got out of the car and walked into a store and committed a robbery or murder, jumped back in the car and the person drove off, that person didn't do one thing wrong except drive that vehicle. He may or may not have been a part of that robbery or knew about it in advance. But I'll guarantee you as a lawyer, you would have found, if you were trying the case against him, you would charge him with accessory.
There's another side to this particular coin, though, that I don't think, I mean, I fear we may be, and not, I'm talking about the people as a whole, is overlooking. And that is the fact that the basic right in this country is trial by jury. And if you start second-guessing the juries, the next thing you know, you're not going to have any juries. And if you don't have juries, there's not going to be anybody there to protect your rights.
True.
Against the government, against your fellow man, or anybody else. And what bothers me, it seems that I could understand the first trial, but here you had 3 different races involved in that. And you had a long, hard-fought trial, and a jury came up with a verdict. And I'm afraid there's not enough respect for that jury's verdict. And if you start losing respect for jury's verdicts, you're in trouble in this country.
Probably very true.
And that's what bothers me about the comments of partial justice. I'm not saying that had I been on a jury that I would have decided it different. I may very well have, but I still respect that jury's decision, and I think we need to keep that in mind. Very quickly, you find things better, worse, or about the same since you came here, insofar as discrimination of minorities are concerned?
About the same, maybe a little bit better, but about the same.
It's better, but it's still a lot under the cover. Integration, is it segregation?
The hidden
segregation.
things.
There you are. You can't pinpoint it. You can't lay it on the table, but there's a lot there. And
a lot of it also, I think, in fairness, there's some of it coming back the other way.
Amen. It's not
Mr. Duke, any final comment from you?
I just agree with Mr. Wade and Mr. Williams. It's better. Hopefully it'll get better, but we have a long way to go.
I thank each one of you for being here and participating in this, and I think that the more open we are about these things, the more apt we are to improve the situation. I thank each one of you very, very much.